Hello and welcome to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Rachael is a speaker, inspirational author, and an overcomer. As Rachael is walking through her own journey of grief, she's challenging others to persevere and overcome their own circumstances. Find out more at rachaelflick.com. Here now is your host, Rachael Flick.
Hi friends, welcome to this week's episode of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Today I get to present my friend Rick Eldridge. With more than 35 years in the entertainment business as a musician, producer, director, and entrepreneur, Rick makes projects happen. Whether sports programming, live production, animated series, or feature films, Rick has been involved in every facet of creative development and production management in the entertainment industry. He is a graduate of Brevard College with advanced studies at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and Full Sail School of Recording Arts. He serves on several charitable, civil, and college university boards. In addition to the Mulligan, his creative projects include The Ultimate Gift, Bobby Jones' Stroke of Genius, Hermie and Friends, Gigi, Running the Sahara, Never Again, First Responders, and When We Last Spoke. Rick, welcome to the Hopecast.
Hey, thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to talk about your new film, First Responders. So the tagline of this film is after her firefighter husband suffers a life-changing blaze, trauma therapist Karen Williams discovers the limits of her professional experience and must face her own fears while trying to save her marriage. That is a powerful topic.
It is, very much so. And the stories we're trying to tell here are real. It's within a context of a feature film where we dramatized a lot of things, but very real issues. And we wanted to, in many ways, humanize these men and women that sacrifice so much of themselves for our safety, for our security every day. And that's the passion behind First Responder.
That's awesome. I think humanizing the badge is one of the most powerful things that we can do, is take them kind of out of the shield of the uniform and create a story and humanize them. And I work to do that with my story, but I love that you take art and the creative process into that work.
Absolutely. Well, and Karen, who is the background, kind of the backstory, and she was a dispatch person. So she comes from a long generation of first responders also. And when she met her husband and married him, she had this issue of, sending him out and her being the dispatch that actually does that and then literally hears what's going on. And she had to quit. She had to change professions. And so what she does is she becomes a counselor. And so what we see through the course of the film is we see her interacting with others in various lines of duty and responsibility, and dealing with their traumatic issues and core issues in their lives, and in some ways kind of stuffing her own, which got through the course of the film. And we began to see this happens with her husband, who runs into a fire and actually finds a young child and just can't get it out of his head. And that's the thing that's so difficult for us to understand, is how do you roll up onto a crash or go into a building like that and then just turn it off and go home and be normal and have dinner and play with your kids. It's so difficult to do. And yet we take so much for granted. But that's the course of the story and what we tried to tell in making First Responders.
That is so relatable. I can't imagine that you created that without a lot of connections with real people and real life stories.
Very much so. We felt like it was a big responsibility to tell it authentically, not just in the action and the creative process, but in the actual moods and images and things that they deal with on a daily basis. And so we worked very closely with first responders in every level. We had a huge fire sequence that is a big part of the story. We had about 25. You call them extras, but they were actually featured firemen on the set performing the duties that they do. We did not want an actor trying to pretend how to work a piece of machinery or or walk into a fire or deal with the protocols that you have to deal with, because we need to be authentic in the stories that we tell and the way we tell them. So we learn so much in the process. Just and have such a higher degree of respect for the work that these men and women do and the expertise that that goes into that.
Yeah, I know that the first responders who watch your movie are going to appreciate that attention to detail, because when my husband was living and we would see a movie that involved law enforcement, he was always critiquing their technique, right? Like, that's not the right way to buy a room. That's not how you enter a residence. That's, and so they will be able to connect more deeply because you didn't let actors try to figure out how to make that look
Absolutely.
good.
Well, I mean, and I learned so much. I mean, even something as simple as walking up to a parked car, that you've either pulled over or that you're trying to check out something. There's a way to do that to try to protect yourself, and it's just very, very much something that we wanted to get right. And so we had them alongside of everything that we did, police, fire, rescue, EMT, in the hospitals, working at every level, just to be as authentic as possible to tell the story we were telling.
That's a really high level of excellence. That's awesome. So you were talking about how he has this traumatic experience in a fire that leads to a form of PTSD. And I think that that's something that needs to be brought forward more often. We usually think of PTSD as, your own loss or some kind of battle experience, that having to carry out a dead child out of a scene, or to see multiple losses, or, that you should be able to finish your notes and go to the next call. Like you said, go to dinner, right?
Yeah.
Like, how are you supposed to function like that? And we can't. We're not made to as human beings.
That's right.
So you brought that to the surface.
Absolutely. And just coincidentally and tragically, 2 weeks before we started shooting, we were working with a beautiful fire department that and a group of people there that became extras and working with us in our film. They had that experience happen to them. So it was very real and very emotional. And so some of the emotions you see on the faces are not acting. It's in many ways reliving the tragedy that they face on a daily basis. And, the PTSD issue is something that I know a few years ago, even people didn't even want to talk about. It was like, well, I'm a strong person and this is what I do. And how can you walk away from some of the things that you see and some of the things that you're a part of and just turn it off in your head? It can't happen. And so it's, you do carry those things home with you. One of the things I was a little concerned about initially, we've got some very graphic nightmares that one of our actors has. And we portrayed that in the film.
That's important.
Yeah. But it was very real. And I remember a few people kind of saying, are we going over the top with this? Well, I consulted with some of our people and they said, oh no, this is as real as it gets, and sometimes not even as graphic as it gets. One of the things we did with the film, which was very meaningful, we did a theatrical release initially, and we did it during First Responder Week to really give honor and respect to these men. There is a week, usually it's the last week of October in every year, that we, corporate America, media takes an opportunity to step back and instead of defunding, instead of talking down, instead of looking at all the bad that happens, to say, we do respect and we honor you and what you do, which is really the course of why we made this movie. But we wanted to release it those days, and we did. And Fathom allowed us to do kind of a reflective conversation. We had the feature film that played, and then we went to some actual first responders that really validated the stories that we'd just seen on screen. And to me, it was so emotional and so meaningful that we made it part of the movie. So typically the movie ends, everything happens, you see the credits roll, and it's done. We actually kept this. So it's in the streaming version, it's in the DVD version, because it was so powerful and so much validated the things that we had seen dramatized in the course of the film. And some of the stories are just, they just capture your heart. One individual that had a very similar situation to our fire person, the fire chief, who could not get the memory out of his mind, wound up like our guy, leaving the force. And part of his healing, which he shares in the movie, and it's a little bit of a spoiler, but it's okay. You'll want to see this.
Yes, we do.
He goes through the story of how they had wanted to adopt, they couldn't have children, and found this young girl who had about 80% of her body burned. They fell in love with her. I mean, here's this girl that if you have choices, maybe that's not your first choice, but for him, he saw this as really something that was healing for him. He had been through the process. Yeah. And so he shares that redemptive story and how they've gone through the processes now of loving and caring for this young child. And it's been a real source of healing for him. And so there's some stories like that after the movie from actually real first responders, and very, very meaningful. And so powerful stuff.
I love the intention that you brought into this. I mean, I think it's easy to create, like I have a little Rescue 911 or Chicago Fire 911 crush, right? Where it's like, it's easy to create these stories. They're dramatic, they're interesting, but they're superficial, right? Yep. And I'm hearing that you really brought heart and soul into this film.
Yeah, I think that was very important. As we were kind of, and just to give you a little bit of the origins of how this happened, most of our crew were working on another film during the COVID days, and lots of things were crazy at COVID. We had a lot of things going on in our world, which some not so good, and some of those things were taking shots at some of the very people that do protect us and create safety for us, and things like defunding police in certain areas of our nation, and we were just sitting around actually during a break of filming another film, and said, well, we've got to do something about this. This is not right. We had a full medical team because of COVID. We had a lot of protocols that were put into place for testing, and so we had a full medical team. We had safety and security team on set at all times, and we're just sitting around talking, and this was birthed out of that. And out of us saying, somebody needs to do this. And then we said, well, why not us? And so this was immediately targeted to be released during that First Responder Week in 2022. And then from that, we're now, moving on to the DVD and the Amazon, Apple TV, anywhere you buy your DVDs, you can find this. And very, very meaningful. One other element that we added to the film, which I think was very important, we wanted to have a charitable contribution to these men and women, some of the people that are helping with some of the traumatic things that they're dealing with, like PTSD. So we embraced an organization called First Responders Bridge, and then and First Responders Charities. In fact, just last week we were in Los Angeles launching the international release of the movie. Had a big press release and gave a check to one of those charities that is working directly with helping first responders across our nation. Very big part of what we wanted to do as well.
I think that's an amazing that not only did you give back out of the pain of 2020 and the riots and the loss and the defund the police message, because your film is a gift back to the community, but you also chose to put the proceeds for first responder nonprofits and supporting them. I mean, that's just generous above and beyond. I want to talk to you a little bit about the PTSD piece, because there is a taboo in that for first responders, right? Where if you admit that you need help, then you're not qualified to carry a gun or to respond to calls. And so what did your film do to kind of address that and release some of that stigma?
Well, I think the main thing is, we see that these are real issues that people deal with. The principal glue of the whole film is our character Karen Williams, who is a counselor, and she comes out of a first responder profession, so she understands the things that she's dealt with, and she's obviously dealing with some of those things herself. But through that, people are able to talk through the things that they're dealing with and the way that they're dealing with them. And And again, I think the another testimony that happens after the making of the movie in the reflective conversations, we had another individual who was very open and very very courageous, actually, to say, he says, I've been retired for 10 years and I'm still taking the medication, and I'm afraid to go off of it. And a powerful testimony. And he talked about how he's mentoring other young men and counseling himself, because it can be such a stigma, and people are afraid for their job. They're afraid for their competencies and everything else. But yet, it's so important that they're honest with themselves, and that they do seek help. And it's very natural to do that too. I mean, the things that you face and you see, I don't know any human being that can just walk away from that and not be changed. I have a close friend who happens to be a Navy SEAL, not a first responder, but in a very different way, a first responder too. And he stuffed this for so many years. I won't give you his name. He's a very high-ranking commander today, but he just had to come to terms with himself, and he struggled for so long with that, because that's a weakness, and I can't appear weak, and I've got to lead my men. I've got to do what I do, and so there's this interstruggle as well that happens, and so I think it's a very important thing for us to deal with and talk about in this film. And I know the organizations that we've come alongside of really do plan to use the film to create some opportunity for conversation and some opportunity to say it's okay to talk about these things. In fact, it's healthy to talk about these things, to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, after my husband was murdered, I experienced PTSD, and I really wrestled with what did it look like to say that I wasn't okay and that I needed more help than I had access to at that time. And I saw the testimony of one of the police officers who responded to the shooting in Aurora and is famous for the AP picture of carrying one of the dead little girls out of the theater. And he retired from law enforcement, and I saw his testimony of going to a place called Honey Lake in Greenville, Florida, and his willingness to admit that he had done that and he needed help and that he found support and resources gave me the courage. And I ended up going and attending Honey Lake for several weeks myself. And it was transformative, because I really pulled away and honored what I needed. And then I came back, and it was like I had found myself again, because I had been willing to ask for help.
Yep, absolutely. And that, I think, does happen. I know in the course of the conversations that there are 3 different segments in the movie where there are counseling sessions going on, where people are able to open up and just talk about things that are happening in their life. And you have to open up and talk about it and deal with it. And I think that in finding others that relate to you, there's healing in that too. And I know organizations like that and places like that where you can deal with it with other people that understand, and they've been through similar instances and dealt with the trauma, dealt with the wild emotions that you feel through the process of that. And I know there are many times we want to reach out, and if we haven't been through something like that ourselves, we don't know how you feel. We don't know how to relate. So finding others that do, I think, is really, really critical.
Mm-hmm. It's so powerful. Let's talk about another one of the key themes in the movie, which was the impact of the first responder life on the family and on those marriages. How did you guys address that?
Well, I think there were 2 things there. We wanted to, first of all, get forth the message that this is not just the sacrifice of these men and women. It's a sacrifice of a family. When dad leaves and kisses his kids goodbye, they hope he comes back the next day, or mom, the same thing. So what we wanted to do is really first show the camaraderie, the relational camaraderie. So we actually started the movie in a bowling alley, and these guys they have this bowling league, and the police are bowling against the fire, who are bowling against the rescue, and so there's a lot of just razzing and having fun and interacting with each other, connecting with each other, and it humanizes who they are in many ways too. But then we also have families that are connected to that, and kids are part of that story, and so we see all of that, and through that process, I think we hopefully have a better understanding of the sacrifices that are made. And one of our goals, one of our objectives was that people did understand that there's so much that these people do for our safety, for our security, for us every day, and it's not to be taken for granted. Those same people that wanted to defund the police were also cursing when they're calling and nobody's showing up in time. Yeah, I mean, where do you land with all of that? Those are the kind of issues.
You want them when you need them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, when I married my husband, I had no idea what I was signing up for. I thought, there's job security, right? There's always crime. There's always criminals. Like, that's really as far as my mind took me. And I had no idea that, the families serve, right? When they're working 90-hour weeks and you're doing holidays and birthdays and family activities by yourself and you're parenting without their presence in the home that day, that is a form of service to the community where the community is getting your spouse, your loved one, and you're not. And I had no idea the cost that would come at.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of one kind of mental image that I carried through the process in kind of a men's group that I'm a part of, a lot of corporate executives that were sharing some things that they dealt with. And this one corporate executive, and not to really downplay, his issues, but very successful business guy who's done very well and deals with a lot of pressures of people and business and deals and money and all of that. And, the question was asked to him, how do you deal with those things and then go home and be a dad to your 3 kids and to your wife? And he says, and he, had this little grin on his face and he says, I've got a graveyard on the way home. And as I pass the graveyard, I mentally remove those things that I've been dealing with at my office and my work, and I throw them into the graveyard, and I go home, and I try to be a dad, and I try to be, a husband, and I try to do the things that I need to do. And sure enough, the next day I drive back out, and they're there. They're waiting on me. I can pick them back up and take them back to the office again. And that's valid, and I understand that. One of the other guys in the circle who happened to be a first responder and happened to have dealt with some trauma of a much, I think, personal and traumatic way, he looked at him and said, I can't do that. And it really brought home the degree of what they're dealing with, because it was like, when I drive by that graveyard.
Those people are the ones that I interacted with, literally. Yeah.
And so everyone has to deal with these things individually and personally, and everyone's got their own experiences. But I think that those were those graphic stories and that interaction really said something that's a little deeper than just money or just stuff, because it's a part of who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've interacted with other people in their trauma as a part of their daily life and,
right.
Bringing home a paycheck, right? You're with the worst people on their worst day, having their worst experience. And that is your every single day.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So within the movie, you talk about the relationship that Karen has in her marriage and how his PTSD impacts that relationship and her trying to, find resources to help him. What does that look like?
Well, I think in the course of the film, her being a counselor, she initially, I can handle this, I can do this. But as it became more apparent that she was pushing these things down herself, they came to a point where they didn't really know the answer. They couldn't find the answer themselves. And there's a turning point in the story for this story, within our story, where she cries out to a higher being. She says, God, I can't do this. I know the right things to say. I know the right things to do, but I can't do this. And God, please help. And that was a final turning point. And to call out to that higher being. And I think it was more of a release to say, I can't fix this. Not only do I not know how, I just physically can't do this. And I think we have to come to terms with that as part of a turning the corner for a healing process. And so that was critical element of the film and the story, and particularly that story for that couple.
Yeah, that's so good. I really appreciate the people who are invested in supporting the first responder marriages, because they are under such intense strain and pressure. Right. And we here in Colorado have some grant funding for first responders and marriage counseling, family counseling, personal counseling. And I know some first responders here who are really passionate about mentoring first responder marriages. And so I just encourage people who are listening that if you're in that space and you can relate to Karen and her relationship and the PTSD and the stress, that there are resources out there if you'll just plug that sucker into Google and go start looking, because there are people who are passionate about you and your marriage and the struggle that your family's under right now. And so men and teams led by Rick that have created this art are passionate in telling the story. And there are people who are passionate about coming around you and helping you work through the place where you're at right now, which feels like crisis.
Absolutely. One of the organizations we came alongside of is called First Responder Bridge. And you can go to firstresponderbridge.com and get information. They deal specifically with people all over across the country, based out of Columbus, Ohio, but they're everywhere. And we wanted to be able to, again, work with organizations that were making a difference. I mean, we're telling a story, we're making a movie, then we're going to go make another movie. But these guys live it every day and are there every day. And we thought it was very important that not only do we give back of our time, of our talents, of all that we are, but that we also give resource that can continue, once people want to see the movie and they want to find some answers. Yeah.
That's awesome, Rick. Thank you so much for deciding to receive the invitation that day in that conversation in 2020 that why not us? I mean, you could have said a lot of reasons of why not us. Like, we don't want to be involved. We don't want the backlash. We don't want, the resistance of people who want to defund the police. And you said, here am I, send me. And I really respect that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I think it's important. I mean, I think media and what we do is a huge resource and a huge opportunity for us to make a difference in the world by telling stories and messages that are redemptive, inspirational, and also challenging. That'll cause us to look at things in a different way, and we don't take that lightly. I think that's very important. And we love what we do as filmmakers and the stories that we tell. So it was a very natural thing as we were dealing with crisis in our world, and sitting around, working in a lot of, issues that we don't normally have to deal with ourselves. Making a movie's hard enough, much less you layer all the protocols that had been layered on us because of a pandemic. And we have all of these resources of people that normally aren't on a film set. I mean, we'll have a medic that's there in case you get hurt or something, but we had a full team, on set with us every day. But we got to know those people and interact with those people, and it really changed us. And it was just a time and place where we just said, we have a responsibility to do what we can do to make a difference, and let's take this on. So it was a labor of love for so many. Yeah.
I cannot wait to go watch it. Rick, where can people find this film?
You can go to anywhere you get your movies today. Amazon Prime, Apple TV. There's a Christian streaming like an Apple, which is PureFlix. If you might be subscribed to that, they have a few million viewers that do that. But anywhere you find your product, if you type in First Responders movie, it should come up. You should be able to find it.
That's awesome. And Rick, if people want to get in contact with you and your work further, where can they find you? RealWorksStudios.com. Love to hear from people. I tell you what really keeps us going, I think, is hearing responses from people that have either seen a movie and they tell us what happened that made a difference. That's encouraging to us. We love hearing that. It's RealWorks with 2 E's, like a film reel. So RealWorksStudios.com. Boy, I love to hear from folks that have had a chance to watch our films and give us impact and even tell us their story. I mean, I can't make every story of that comes to us, but I can sure enjoy
reading them. And I do try to make sure that we do.
That's awesome. So, friends, it's been so great to get to tell you about a resource like this First Responders movie. Rarely do they have so much rich content and support for first responders, their families, and their marriages. I'm going to encourage you to go download this film, check it out, and if you love it, share it with your friends. And would you rate, review, and subscribe to the Hopecast so that you can spread the message of hope to other people who need to learn about post-traumatic growth and resilience and who need the light and encouragement that the Hopecast has to offer. Everybody, I'll connect with you next week on the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.
You've been listening to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. To find out more, go to rachaelflick.com. While you are there, you can book Rachael for your next speaking engagement. Her inspiring message will be sure to engage and touch the heart of your audience at your next conference, church event, or business function. Go to rachaelflick.com to book her today. While you're online, you can discover more information about all of the platforms that this podcast is on. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review. To follow Rachael on social media, simply click on the social media icons at the top of the page and you will be directed to those sites. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time for another edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.